Hi, this is Sean D'Souza, and you're listening to the 3-Month Vacation Podcast. This podcast isn't some magic trick about how to work less. Instead, it's about how to really enjoy the work that you do and to enjoy your vacation time. Hi, it's Sean, and you're listening to the 3-Month Vacation. Renuka hates going to the hairdressers. She hates being there for an hour, 2 hours, sitting there, people chatting all around her. Instead, she wants her haircut to be swift, to be done with, and to get back home. I, on the other hand, don't mind sitting for hours at the hairdresser. I don't have to listen to anything. I still have my earbuds. But I enjoy the experience. And what we have here is one person trying to shorten the experience and the other person trying to expand that experience. And unfortunately for both of us, we have no control over the length of time for that experience. We can't shorten it or expand it in any way. But in business, we can do that. And in business, we have many situations where we have to extend something or we have to shorten it. Maybe it's an article, maybe it's a presentation, or maybe you're writing a book. And suddenly you feel things are going way beyond what you expected and you need to shorten it. Or maybe you don't have that much and you need to lengthen it. Well, this is what the podcast is about. It's about how to use examples in a precise manner to shorten or lengthen content in a matter of minutes. And let's make this podcast all about examples, and let's start out with a presentation, because that's when you're on stage, the lights are on you, everybody's looking at you, and you're running out of time. When I speak at conferences, I have two conditions for the organizer. The first condition is that I want to be the second speaker. I don't want to be the first speaker because when things go wrong, they usually go wrong for the first person on the first day. And by the time I get in, they've already fixed that glitch and, well, we have no problem. So that's the first condition. But the second condition is that I want a certain amount of time for my presentation. I know how to pace the presentation so that I don't rush through it, that I can go through the examples. And sometimes organizers just stuff everyone into a 20-minute bracket or a 30-minute bracket. So I might ask for a 45-minute bracket. But because I've asked for this special favor, I make sure that I never exceed the time. Anyway, I was at this conference in Australia a couple of years ago, and to my horror, I saw a sign going up which said just 10 minutes left. I knew instantly something was wrong because I should have had about 20 minutes at that point in time. I practice a presentation as many as 16 or 17 times, and I keep a clock, so I know exactly where I should be in the presentation at that point in time. But there was this person with this big board saying 10 minutes left, and I had 20 minutes of content to go through. So how do you reduce all of that content on the spot? If you don't have slides, it's okay, because you can just leave out stuff. But if you have slides, people are looking at the slides. You can't just zoom through the slides. And so you have to put in some system. And the system that we use is a lot of examples. So if you assume that the presentation was about pricing, I'd have examples, say, from 3 brands, say Icebreaker, Apple, and maybe one from Psychotactics itself. I would go through the first one, go into a lot of detail, then go through the second one, go through a lot of detail, and then the 10-minute sign comes up. Instantly, there's a crisis. What you're reducing at that point in time is just the amount of detail. You don't have to skip over the example. You don't have to rush through the slides. And this is a technique that all of us can use almost consistently, which is to put in a fair amount of examples in our presentation and then time our presentation so that it goes maybe 5 minutes before the deadline. Then if someone stands up at the end of the room and scares the heck out of you, you can just reduce the detail on the example. That's it. You don't have to skip over anything. You just have to reduce the detail on the example. But the converse is also true. Sometimes you're nervous, you get up there and you start talking and you start speaking so quickly that you go through the presentation very quickly. And now you've got loads of time to go through that presentation. What you've got to do is the opposite, and that is you put in more detail when you're talking about the examples. You give more information, and the presentation mostly makes it to the deadline, and you don't look stupid finishing off your presentation in half the time. This concept is true for presentations and, of course, for webinars as well. On a webinar, you probably have an idea of how much time is still available to you, and you can either extend it or reduce it. But you can't do it with concepts. So the concepts still have to be just 3 concepts at best. So if you look at, say, the brain audit presentation, we go, what is the brain audit? How do you get triggers? And why is the brain audit a language? And we just cover 3 main topics, but it's the examples that get moved around. The amount of stuff in the examples that either gets increased or reduced on the spot, depending on the time. And if you think it's only valid for presentations, no, it's not. You can also use it while writing an article or a booklet or maybe even a book. If you're a really diligent writer and you want to save time and you want to save energy, you probably have outlined your article. Outlining is what professionals do simply because they can start to see the bloat in the article. They can see when the article is going off at a tangent. They can see when it's starting to bloat. However, all of this doesn't help you when you're in the middle of things. It's like being in the middle of the presentation. Sure, no one's holding a gun to your head. There's no instant crisis, but you're still frustrated because you don't know how to increase something or decrease something. Well, now you do. It's the same principle. Say you're writing an article, you get to the point where you're going to put in some examples. And you should be putting examples in every article because it helps the client understand what you're saying. So if you read the brain audit and you get to the first chapter, what you'll find is there is a concept called the problem. And in the problem, there are going to be X number of examples. Now, those examples can be short or they can be longer. And if you're struggling to fill up the pages, well, put more detail in those examples. If you find that things are getting bloated, you reduce the amount of detail in each example. But you can also reduce the number of examples. So people often ask, how many examples should I give? And usually you want to give no more than 3 examples. Why? Because your public, your audience is pretty smart. They don't need 17 examples. So you can't extend it indefinitely. You give 3 examples and you're done. And 3 examples will fill up at least a page and a half, sometimes 2 pages. It depends on the width of the examples and how many pages you want to fill up. But this is kind of the technique that I use and what we use in the article writing course, which is when things are getting bloated, you cut down the examples. You cut down the length of the examples. You cut down on the detail of the examples. When things are a bit skimpy, then you do the opposite. And this is the same principle that you can take across the board for whatever you're doing, whether it's a podcast, whether it's a presentation, whether it's a webinar or book or booklet or whatever you're doing. Examples come to the rescue. The detail and the examples come to the rescue. So this is a very short podcast, but it's one of the things that can save you hours and hours of frustration And if you're caught in a trap like I was on stage, then it gets you out of that trap very quickly and without anyone noticing that you made any change at all. Which brings us to the end of the podcast. Let's find out what's happening in psychotactics land. On the 26th of September, we have the uniqueness course. This is the home study. And on the 10th of October, we have the article writing self-study. Again, both home studies. And to get the goodies and to see what it's all about, go to psychotactics.com/U goodies. That's U for umbrella, goodies. And you'll get on that waiting list and you'll get the goodies. And then you can decide whether you want to buy it or not. But uniqueness is crucial because there's so much noise out there. And what we think is that we need to have a uniqueness for our company. And I'll say this and I'll say this again and again. You don't need a uniqueness for your company as much as you need a uniqueness for your product. And the best example of this is just a phone. You know that you have a phone. You know that you'll buy a new phone. And it's the same company. So it's the same company battling it out in your brain to get you to buy the new phone or the new computer or the new microphone or the new camera, whatever. The point is that every product in your company has to have a uniqueness to first battle it out with the other products in your company, with the other services in your company, and then the outside world. So uniqueness becomes especially crucial because there's this internal battle as well as this external battle, and clients have to decide whether they want your product or not. Which is also what I'm doing right now, which is I'm positioning that factor of uniqueness, which is that you're going to need it for every product, and positioning this against all of the books that you'll find on Amazon. We just talk about, uniqueness of a company, or positioning. Well, no, that's not enough anymore. What you've got to do is you have to have the uniqueness of every single product in your company. And if you've ever tried to do uniqueness, you know what a nightmare that is. To do it for one thing, let alone every product and every service. Well, that's what the course is about, and that's how you'll go about it. And of course, you can always come to 5000 BC after that. We can have the discussions. You can ask a whole bunch of questions. I'm always around in 5000 BC except when we go on holiday, which is every 12 weeks. So that's our 3-month vacation, 12 weeks on, 1 month off. That's pretty much it from Psychotactics Land. You might want to also bookmark the date, 10th of October, if you're interested in the article writing self-study. And I'll say bye for now. Bye-bye. Still listening? One of the things that we do at Psychotactics is we send out chocolates. We send out maybe about 500, maybe more chocolates a year. And we send out each chocolate with a handwritten name and address. And then there is a little card which is made on handmade paper, embossed and very fancy. And then Renuka writes on every card. And one of the things that took a lot of time as well, because you consider everything has to be written down, was the reverse of it, which is the return address. Now, the chocolates don't come back. Usually they don't come back. But you have to put in a return address. And the thing I hate the most is those tiny white rectangular labels. You've seen that. So the written thing takes time. The labels look horrible. And one of my favorite sites is moo.com, just like it sounds, moo.com. And we got labels done there. And we put in Renuka's drawings there, Renuka's cartoons. And now that's going to become like a little collector's item. So if you're in 5000 BC, or you're going to get a chocolate for having done a course or something like that, then look for the label because it's coming your way. It's a fancy label. It's a nice label. And here's a uniqueness, a return address label that you would like to have. I'll say bye for now, and we'll see you in 5000 BC. Bye-bye.
you.